Welcome in, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? Welcome in, everybody. How's everybody's night going? Let me know your thoughts on relationships. How is everybody doing tonight? Let me know your thoughts on relationships. What will you put up with? What do you deal with? And what won't you deal with? Thank you for coming in. How are you doing tonight? So, what are your thoughts on relationships? What will you deal with? What don't you deal with? And what will you put up with to keep your relationship going? Any thoughts on the matter? How is your evening magnetic vortex? You said you're at the lab. Exactly what do you do at the lab? You said it's scientific research. You said you're at the lab. Exactly what do you do at the How's everybody's night going? Any plans for this weekend? Welcome in, everybody. Don't forget to thumbs up the live coming in. And the discussion is, what will you put up with in relationships? What do you deal with on a daily basis? What is too much to handle in a relationship? And what will you go through to keep marriages or relationships continuing? Adult talk with Thea tonight. So, okay. So you're doing special access programs. Okay. So, what is your thoughts on relationships magnetic then? Are you married? Are you in a relationship? Yes, for a lot of people, that is true. The large percentage of people, you're saying a marriage is like landing a dream job, right? I guess the goal of any relationship is that people want more out of it. They want that commitment, they want that marriage. But then when they get that marriage, obviously, a lot of people realize it's not for them. It's the all the work that goes into it, and or maybe too much demands, or maybe only meeting, like somebody's meeting 75%, the others at 25%. So how many people out here can say that their relationship is being met halfway? Do they talk about their relationships? Do they talk about the things that need to change to build the relationships? Because relationships in itself is a lot of work. Marriages are a lot of work, and that is why a lot of divorces land, shortly after marriage, or in that 5 year span of a marriage, because people get bored, tired of it, because there's no communication, there's no half and half. So I guess my question is how far are you, magnetic, or anybody else out there that's listening, willing to go to keep your marriage going? Are you going to work on it? Will you meet halfway? Is it more take than give? Actually, you're right about that. A lot of women do actually request divorce. Maybe they feel that that is a significant amount. Maybe they feel that. I mean, I don't know exactly their relationships or anything, but I know that a lot of them end because of a lot of women feel overworked. whether they're going to work full time and taking care of the kids in the house. Maybe the husband comes home and really doesn't do much more than just go to work. That could be part of that problem, because especially in the US, a lot of the time is the husband goes to work and then comes home and he doesn't do much more. He sits on the couch, the woman serves him or takes care of the kids, and then he goes to bed, and it's a never-ending cycle. So what will you put up with? What are your expectations when you do get married? What do you expect? Do you tell it beforehand? Do you tell it, when you're married? Do you keep it to yourself until after marriage? I feel that these things all need to be on the table before marriage, as well as communication, to keep that communication open so that the marriage works, because it's not something that should be taken lightly. It's a full-time job. Hi, B. Stokes. Thank you for coming in. So what are your thoughts about it? So what are your thoughts on it, B. Stokes? What are your thoughts on marriage, relationships? How far will you go for your relationship? What will you put up with? What won't you put up with? That's true. I feel a lot of people rush into those situations because I feel like it's in the beginning, it's all about the lust. You meet the person, it's like the head over heels thing. You have the lust and you're jumping into it of what ifs and what could be's, and you don't really get to know the person that you should be getting to know. Right. You really definitely are going to be very upset if you marry somebody later on and find out they're not exactly that dreamboat that you expected earlier. So you are right about that. My thoughts personally is I feel that you should marry somebody that you can be friends with also, because that even after that lust and all that goes away, because it does eventually get tired. And, when you have children and stuff, it puts a lot of strain on the relationship. You don't have the full time of just that one-on-one anymore. It's more responsibilities. And I feel a lot of times that without the communication, it causes stress within the relationship, because the mothers or the wives, I would say 9 out of 10 times, get stuck with most of the work when it comes to the children, the house. And then a lot of times they're also full-time work. A lot of them do full-time work on top of motherhood and on top of being a wife and having your wifely duties of, helping take care of your family. And so, yeah, I feel communication is very important, because you have to have a friend in that so that they know that you have to meet them halfway. And I guess my next question is, if they don't start meeting you halfway, what exactly do you do? Do you continue? Do you talk it out? Do you go to counseling? What would you do for your relationship? Or would you get so tired of it and just say, I'm done? Because obviously out here, this day and age, marriage rate actually is very low. Like, they don't stay married long, and then they're divorced very quick. That's a good question, Magnetic. Actually, you have everything that most people would want except for one thing: a family. It's up to you if you'd want that family or not. Not everybody does want that family, but for those cases, you would be set up and actually have everything you need to create that family and that relationship. Right. Right. I feel the same, B. Stokes. Unfortunately, not everybody else out here feels the same. And it seems like, from what studies and research actually show, if you start looking into the numbers and everything, is there are a few times within the marriage that things start changing if you do not have open communication and a good relationship. And one is around the time that kids are born. Either the wife will start feeling how do you say, she'll start her feelings start changing, because her body's not the same as it was pre-kids, if you want to say. And so she starts, she may not feel, or she may be tired and not up to the same kind of romance and things that happened prior to pre-kids. So that is one of the things that actually do change. And that is one of the times that, they start, that things start happening. And, the husbands, I feel that it's actually not always the man's fault. And that I just don't feel like they completely understand everything that women go through either. Especially, like I said, when we have kids and stuff like that, our bodies change, things start changing. We may not have that sex drive that we had before, pre-kids and things like that. So that changes too. And then, a lot of times the man himself may feel unwanted or undesired because of they don't quite understand what we're going through of the late nights, the early mornings, the kids, the throw up on us, and all that stuff that goes along with becoming a family at that time. So that's where sometimes things start going bad in marriages. And I feel that's why we need to always have open relationships. I think that the problem here is a lot of men don't understand everything, and we don't understand everything about them. So we do definitely need communication. Communication is a big key factor here. Of course, no violence. You are absolutely right about that. I feel the same way as you do. If there's violence in a relationship, obviously that's a toxic relationship. You don't want to continue a toxic relationship. It's not good for you. It's not good for the other person. And it's definitely not good for any children that are brought into the marriage. And it actually just repeats the cycle then, unfortunately. Yes, you are absolutely right. You do definitely need a strong foundation. And I feel that a lot of the younger generation don't quite understand that, or don't take, maybe it's not just the younger generation, but I feel like a lot of them just don't understand that you need to be friends and actually build that foundation, and have that communication and really get to know the person, know the ins and outs, get to know their family. What is their mother like, what is their father like, because were they together when they grew up, were they by their self, what was their childhood like. Those kind of things are what makes or breaks a man or a woman. So you need to know their strongholds, their weaknesses, things like that, so you know that what you're really getting into. Will you be able to build onto that? Will you be able to be the one to be there for their insecurities, because we all have those. So yes, you definitely need that good foundation to actually know the person and know the ins and outs of it before you actually get into being in a relationship. That is really important. So I do believe that as well. So, B Stokes, you've been married for a while now. How long have you been married to your husband? And what about you, Magnetic? Um, you have, you said you lack relationship creativity. I actually understand that completely. I've actually been married for 5 years myself. And yes, there are times that I definitely do not like my husband at all. I mean, it's just one of those things. And there's times that he doesn't like me, but we still have, we are still married, and and we work it out. I mean, it's all about communication and working things out. So that is very, very important. I mean, it's just like having kids. You're not going to like your kids every day. You love them, you love them every day, and you do love your significant other every day, and you would still, as long as it's a good relationship, you're still going to do everything in your power to keep it that way. But some days you just wake up and you're like, oh, why don't you go somewhere? Why don't you do something? Because they just, whether it's, us to them or them to us, we just, it's clashing. It's like best friends. If you go to see your best friend every day and stuff, you too have fights here and there. So I think that's to be expected. It's funny to hear somebody else actually say it, though, but I think these are the things that all couples need to know before they actually get married. It's not going to be a picnic in the park each day, and there are going to be days that you just will be okay if they go away for the day. And then there's others days that you're really going to need them, so I definitely get it. Well, magnetic, I mean, that depends on the way that you view marriage, though, because a marriage is actually supposed to be not just a partnership, but you're actually supposed to actually fall in love and actually spend your life with somebody, grow old together, and make a family. So, I mean, it definitely depends on how you view marriage, and how you view relationships and families and all that stuff. So, I mean, the contract itself is given if it's actually out of love. Well, I don't necessarily agree with what you're saying, magnetic, but I mean, everybody's entitled their opinions. But I do believe that, I mean, it goes both ways. I mean, there are both sides, men and women, that they are actually out there just looking for somebody that can actually just take care of them, or what you have versus what you have to offer in more material than out of your heart. I mean, I get that too. But all in all, you're actually, I mean, I guess the big theory here is we are supposed to I guess, what the bigger picture is, we're supposed to find somebody that we care about, procreate, and build some kind of foundation and some future. I mean, it depends on your views on that, obviously. Not everybody has the same views, but most women do, eventually, I mean, the bigger goal is out of a relationship. The goal is to, not just date somebody. You're right. You're right, B. Stokes. There is users in every gender and every age group. I mean, that is true. But I guess the bigger goal is when you are with somebody for a long time, you expect something out of that. You don't expect to keep dating that person. I mean, there is some kind of goal to dating them. Maybe both sides don't feel that way. And I feel that when you go into a relationship, even just dating, I think you should talk about your goals, your expectations, and things that you want out of that, so that way it's upfront. So that way, if the other person does not want those, and they're like, hey, I'm not ready for all these things. I just want to hang out. It'll be cool if we hang out once in a while. It'll be cool if we just go, to the movies once in a while. I don't want to just be tied down with one person. I want my options open. And at least that way, everybody, is on that understanding. But then, like I said, there's always that one that does want something more. And out of dating, the ultimate goal is marriage, the stability of having a significant other and a family. So, I mean, that is the bigger goal. So, B. Stokes, you said that you've been with your husband for 5 years. When you were dating, did you get into, in the beginning, was it just fun? Did you have some kind of expectations, or did you kind of like just see where it went and kind of like just swung into it? And Magnetic, what about you? I mean, is your goal to actually settle down one day, or do you want to kind of just, live your life and, see what happens? If it happens, that's fine. But otherwise, you're just up for, like, just having fun and not really settling down, because it seems like you really don't want that yourself. It's interesting to find out what others think. Okay, so you actually dated for quite a while. A decent amount of time before you actually decided to get into anything serious. So, I mean, you had a lot of time then to get to know each other. Probably why your relationship works out so well. The black projects that you work. So, okay. So you actually, okay, so B Stokes, then were in, you actually did the whole dating thing and everything else before you used to actually talked about even getting more serious. Is it something that you could do? And I guess also you travel a lot then, from what I gather. So you had to make sure that you could do all that, then I'm assuming, correct? So B Stokes, how's your night going? Do you have any plans for this weekend? Right, I definitely get that. So you basically magnetic. What you're saying is you work in a top secret facility doing secretive things that you have to do. So it prevents you from getting into some kind of relationship, correct? How long you've been doing those kind of projects? Is it something that you've been doing quite a while? It's something that seems like it actually pays you well, though, I take it. Hey, Mom Life. Thank you for coming in. And if anybody is willing, please share out my live. So the conversation tonight is, what are your expectations in your relationships? What will you put up with? What don't you put up with? How far are you willing to go to make it work? And basically, that is the conversation. Well, magnetic, it seems like as long as you're going to stay with that kind of job, that is unfortunately going to be a lonely life for you. It's not much more to say. I hope that you find some kind of happiness in your future. I'm glad you enjoy it. That's what I'm trying to do. So we're trying to have a grown-up talk tonight and see what people will deal with in relationships, what they have dealt with in the past, what they will not deal with any longer, and what they expect out of a relationship. So anybody who care to share, what have you gone through prior? What will you not deal with any longer? And what do you expect out of a relationship? So it's like, will you be upfront with the person? Do you start telling them after a few dates what your expectations are? Are you more free minded, letting it just basically go wherever it's going to go? Or, you know, what is your theories of it all? That's true. So I guess my other question is before marriage, do you tell the other person? Do you tell them what your expectations are about the marriage, or do you keep quiet until after you're married and then tell them? Because it seems like most marriages have miscommunication, and if you have miscommunication, that seems to be, or no communication at all, or one person holds it all in and just does it all. And it seems like that is one of the reasons why the relationship itself does not work, or the marriage fails because there's not communication. So do you let that person know up front, hey, I'm going to do this in a relationship, but I expect this in return. Like, are you going to one night cook and then I'll do the dishes? Or are you going to help out with the housework? I'm still going to be working too. Am I going to be working and taking care of this? What are you going to bring to the table? Like, you can't just, like, what is your job? What are you going to do? So that, I believe, is one of the major problems of why relationships don't work, because the communication is not there. So how do you feel about that, Mom Life? Okay, so you did actually have a conversation then prior to that. Thank you, Robert, for subscribing. Please do me one favor, though, to prevent spamming the live. Can you please not write subscribe into the chat? But I appreciate you being here. And I guess the conversation again is, what will you put up with in a relationship? Do you meet your partner 50-50? Are you upfront before marriage? Do you let them know what your expectations and goals are? Mom's Life said that she's not married. However, she's been with her kid's dad for 12 years. And before things got serious, she actually did have that conversation with him. So Mom's Life, you've been together 12 years. How does that make you feel not being married, though? Does that change anything? Do you feel like you're lacking something being with him? You're basically in I guess, I don't know if your state is has the Commonwealth marriage. I don't think it's Commonwealth, but do you feel you need that marriage to secure, or I guess complete your relationship goals? Is that something that you need? A lot of women, would not be with somebody for 12 years and be unwed. They actually would, be fed up with it at that time. So is it something that you agreed on? Is it something that, you decided not to do? Or it's interesting to find out, because everybody has different situations. And Robert, what is your outtake of relationships and goals? Are you married? Do you have children? Are you in a relationship? What will you not deal with? What will you deal with? So anybody just coming in, if you have not, please thumb up the live and share me out if you can. Also, again, what is your situation? Will you be married? Will you tell the person that you're dating what your expectations is, what your goals are? Okay, so Mom's Life, you said that you don't want to be married. So exactly why wouldn't you want to be married? Like, what would change versus what you have now? Like, what do you feel would happen being married versus not being married? Everybody has different outlooks on marriage. So, I mean, being together for as long as you are, you said 12 years, I mean, that's a significant amount of time to be with one person. So it's actually like being married to begin with without the ring or I guess the last name change. Because the commitment's still supposed to be the same if you're actually in a relationship together for that long. Or most times it is. I mean, unless there's, some other kind of things going on, because some people don't, they still, some people are swingers, things like that, but that's like a different kind of conversation altogether. So I guess, what do you expect? I mean, you're not married. You said it's not something you want. So what do you want out of your relationship? What do you expect even without being married, because if you've been with him so long? And Robert, what is your aspect on everything? What do you expect? Being married, not being married, dating. Hi, B. Stokes. Thank you for coming back. That's true. I mean, it doesn't change a lot. I think the only thing I think it changes is, I mean, it depends on, what you want. I mean, you are together so long to begin with. It's more, I mean, you still have basically the same thing anybody married would have. The only difference I think that would happen is more on the legal aspect of it. When you're not married, you don't have a lot of legal rights to the other person. If something would happen, God forbid, they would be in, in an accident, or when they get older and die, you wouldn't have the same kind of benefits that would come from that or to help, unless they would set it up that way. I think that is one of the benefits that you, like, your kids would make out from, God forbid, if they would, something untimely, and you just never know these days. So in an untimely event would happen and one of yous would leave early, the kids would be okay because Social Security would take over for that. But the other significant other that's been with you so long wouldn't have that added security to know that they too would be okay. Because the benefits for that, you have to be, every state is different, but you have to be married in order for that to happen, unless you are on like some kind of life insurance policy. Other than that, for like state benefits and things like that, including Social Security, to get their Social Security for yourself, not only do you have to be a certain age, but you also have to be legally married in order to receive that. So that would be one of the things that you yourself would miss out on, if God forbid something would happen. But other than that, I mean, if you have a commitment with the person and you're happy with the person and you just don't want to be married, there's nothing that changes as long as that is the outcome that you have. For me, I wanted more security because I've been in relationships like that for very long, and it didn't work for me that way. So when, like, my husband's a lot younger than me, he is 9 years younger than me. So when I got pregnant with my daughter, I put it on the table like, hey, I had done this before because I have 2 older children. I'm not doing this again alone. And, we were in a relationship. It's not that I was alone, but I'm like, if you want my daughter and, our shared child, to have your last name, then we must be married, because I want the security knowing that we're married, that, this is what's going on. This is what I want. And, he decided that, okay, this is what you want, I'll do it. But we talked about that prior to it. And, we have had our ups and downs and stuff, but that's what I wanted. I wanted that extra added security because I'm not exactly that young anymore either. So if something happens to me, and he's 9 years younger than me, if something happens to me, I want to make sure that, my family's taken care of too. And, because there's so much that happened just within the past, year and a half, because of the pandemic alone. You just never know what tomorrow's going to bring. And I have 2 younger children now. So I have 2 older children that, One's almost 20, and then the other one's in her 20s. And then I have two younger children that are, she's only going to be going into kindergarten. And then I have a 2-year-old. So that's a big age gap. I started completely over, because of I so-called fell in love. And he only had one child. So we decided to have more, and we decided to do the family and get married and all that stuff. So for me, that's what I wanted. And I wasn't married before, and I said, well, this is what I want. And it was more for me, that was like the commitment part. Everybody, of course, has their different theories and how they feel about that, but for me, that was the commitment part, that I wanted. So, and B. Stokes, I remember you telling me that, you were dating him for actually 2 years before, and then started talking about other things before you actually took it to the next level. And I mean, I see everybody has their own stories. I mean, mom life, how long were you dating before you decided to move in and, bring him around the kids? And I mean, because obviously you have a little one too, actually a few little ones. So, I mean, how long was it before he came around your other children? Is he the father of all your children? How did that, because of a lot of mixed families like myself, you're bringing that stranger into the house, and they have to meet the kids. Do the kids like him? You go through all of that too, especially when, you have previous relationships prior to the one that you're with now. So what is everybody else's aspect on, I guess, the blending families too? What will you deal with, with the other person's children? You know, how do you act and react around their kids? So does anybody have any relationship talks or goals? How do you handle your day to day fights? How do you work things out? Okay, so for you, mom life, you've been with him so long that he's basically known all your children since they were, well, your one child, that you had prior to being with him, so long that it's not even awkward because she was so young. And you really didn't jump into anything either. It seems like you took your time before actually, taking it to that level. So everybody was actually very familiar with each other. And with your daughter being so young, it actually worked out well then because if she was so young. I know in a lot of relationships like myself, I believe my daughter, when my husband and me started dating, she just turned 16. And I believe my son might have been 11 or 12. And I mean, so it was, we actually we only dated maybe a few months, and then I got pregnant with my daughter, and we kind of just got married and moved in very fast after that. Like, it just, everything went kind of opposite from everything that you were saying. And we actually got together, and I actually got married. I believe it was 2 weeks before my youngest daughter was actually born. And the older kids, they were already self-sufficient and stuff like this when he came around. So, they'll talk to each other and things like that, but it's a little different than I guess the younger kids would be. The younger kids would be more attached because of getting to know them throughout the years, where my kids were already pretty much grown at that time. And my youngest daughter, already had her oldest child. So at that time, that was her firstborn at that time. So she was already, mostly dependent. So it was a little different. Right. Yeah, I believe because of the age, and him being a good person and being with you so long, and the all the boys and everything that came after, and then your youngest daughter, of course. I believe that he, because of him being around and everything like that, it was no different than her than if it was a biological father, because of he was there for her since basically she was so small. So I mean, to her, that is her dad. I mean, because he's been around you, he's been in the family, and she has other siblings because of you and him. So I feel like that's just natural. And I think it's more natural and easier with blending families when they are so small. Yes, B. Stokes, I believe counseling is really necessary at times. And but I also believe, depending on who you go to, I think it could actually hurt the relationship as well. I believe that you do need to work out problems, and because there is going to be times that you don't like each other, and maybe it may be a month or so, and you may, or even longer, and you may not get along, because relationships itself are very hard, and that is why you have to have trust and honesty, and a lot of communications. And I feel like you should be upfront about what you want as well, while you are together, because you know things do change and responsibilities get more, and there's more put on. One person may feel that they are overworked, you know they have more on their shoulders than the other person. There's always somebody that feels like they're being neglected. And so communication, just like Mom Life said, as well as yourself, is key. And I feel that, before you let out the steam and get angry, or, hold it in, and then it becomes like unrepairable, because words hurt more than actions in most times, if you understand. So I feel that before the words cut, it should be talked out. And I feel that, in a good relationship, the other person will be willing to talk it out. Now, that is not always realistic. And sometimes there's selfishness, and they won't listen or won't hear you out. And do you at that time take it say we need help, and take it to another person, like a counselor, somebody like a marriage counselor or something like that? Do you do that, or is that the time when they're not even listening to you or caring about how you're feeling or what your wants are, or even trying to meet you halfway? Do you say that's it with your marriage? Like, for me, I feel like, for me, I'm only married once. This is it. And I feel that there's ways to work around it. However, when do you feel like selfish is enough? Like, when is it unrepairable? When can it not be repaired no longer? When has that boundary been crossed that you just are like, there's no more? And yes, that's exactly how it should be, Mom's Life. If you bring a man, or for men's sake, a woman into the um the relationship, they meet your child, they should love your child like if they would be your own, their own child, because if they have love for you, they're going to have love for your child. If they don't love you, they're obviously going to not respect your children either. So you want to make sure that the relationship is good. And that one test is, how does your child like him? How is he or she around your children? Are they respectful? Do they treat them respectful? Those are all the things. And even, how are they alone with your children? Especially not being the father. Those things are all so important. Right, you definitely do. That is right. You definitely need to love the whole package, because of there's no separating the two. And I think a lot of the younger generation, they, how can I say, they they jump too fast into things, and then a lot of times women and men put their children on the back burner to be with that one person, and forget their children are supposed to come first and be around that person, and always be the first. And you, even if you're in a new relationship, you can never put your children on the back burner for nobody. So I feel like I've seen a lot of the younger girls, well, they'll be as well as the guys, and they're willing to drop their kids off and whatever and run around and do all these things. And they're in their early 20s, and they forget about their kids for a while because they're in a new relationship. But for me, I feel that you have to not only love me but love my kid. So I feel that, you know, if you do, all of that's going to just kind of work its way out and work together. But you can never leave one out to be with the other. Yeah, actually, B. Stokes, you are absolutely right with that. As long as one person is willing to fight for the marriage and actually has that absolute endless love, that they know that that is the person that they are going to be with, and fight to make it through, you're right. They will make it through anything. And sometimes it is only one sided. But, until that person catches up. And that's what I'm talking about here. Basically, how far do you go if it's one sided? Do you stay and wait until they catch up? Or, does it come to a point where the fight isn't worth it no longer? How long do you fight? Because I've seen couples fight years and years and years for that one person, and that one person was so selfish and didn't return. Do you wait it out because of your love? Because at the same time, you also give up so much of yourself while they're still out there doing whatever they're doing, and not really, recognizing that love too, that they are taking it for granted. Right, mom life. I mean, I think in marriages is a little more difficult, but I mean, any kind of monogamous relationship itself, I mean, if you're in the relationship and you are living together and have children together, or even if you don't have children together, but you've been together for, say, 5, 6 years, and all of a sudden the person starts acting strange or not being so attentive and stuff. Obviously, I mean, there's going to be a lot of questions of why, but then, how long do you wait for that person? Do you continue, trying even though they aren't the same? Or do you, say, I've had enough and move on? It's interesting to know. Okay, well, everybody, I'm going to try to go live again this week. I'm going to try to make it a habit to go live more often. Please DM me about next topics you would like to talk about. Maybe I'll bring somebody up on the up with me, and just DM me through Instagram and let me know any kind of new topics you want to talk about, or any pressing issues, or anything that's on your mind that you would like to discuss. And I am going to try. Starting this week, it's easier for me at night because of the children, but I am going to try to do at least 2 lives a week and start getting into doing more. So I'm going to. Okay, I would try everything I can, and if they're willing to work it out, right? Yes, I feel like if the communication is there and they're willing to work on it, yes, definitely. My personal point of view is, it can't be one-sided where they're so mean and, out there doing them and stuff, and then coming home and thinking things are acceptable either. I don't think, even if marriage, if we were married and say my husband was doing something like that, I don't feel that I would put up with that. I feel that that would, just basically end everything. Because I feel that if you love the person and stuff, you're willing to work things out and actually bend 50-50 for that person and go halfway. It can't be one-sided. So, I mean, there has to be an ultimate goal there, an ultimate, like, how are we going to come together? And you can't only try to make it work with yourself, because obviously if they're not willing to work it out, or they're just, out there doing them, it's not going to benefit anybody. And actually, it's going to hurt you more because you're putting more time into something that is no longer, or that they don't want. Marriage, or just, in a serious relationship, regardless. I mean, if the person just starts changing or disappearing or cheating or whatever the case is, it's just, at that point, it's time to go. There has to be some kind of middle ground, and if you love somebody, you will meet them halfway. So on that note, I'm going to end this live, but please DM me, ladies, and anybody else that's in here listening. DM me on Instagram. It's at theasbunch. The same as the channel name, and hit me up and let me know what next discussion you would like to talk about. Like I said, I want to start doing more lives and getting more into this, and I appreciate everybody's love and support, and joining me here tonight, and taking the time out from your family and to be with me. So that being said, everybody have a blessed weekend and a wonderful night. Good night.